Hello and welcome to the demo video for the purchase price comparison spreadsheet. This is actually, well, this is the second time I've built this. It's a rebuild of the original. The original worked well, but there were a few things that it didn't quite do properly. And people also just came back to me saying, could we have product codes and could we have more suppliers and what have you. So I've updated the spreadsheet as per requests that I've received. And I've also added some other functionality which I think might be useful. So let me go through and explain how this version works, and hopefully it'll all make sense. The whole purpose of this, it's predominantly for business, but you could in theory use it for anything like groceries or whatever the case might be. It lets you set up a database of products. It lets you set up a list of products that you want to compare across different suppliers. So what I've tried to do here is create a generic product name, but then potentially different suppliers may have different product codes for the same product that you actually want to compare across different platforms. So let me get started, and hopefully by the time I'm finished, it will make sense. This is the intro and setup tab. 20 suppliers this time. Last time I had 10, so you can list the first ones down the left and then the second ones down the right. There are a few words that you're not supposed to be using in here because it's going to cause issues later on with the spreadsheet, but I'll leave you to discover what those are. If you do crack what they are, if you type it in, you're going to see a little red cross. It's going to tell you that it's not acceptable. You probably won't find what the words are that you're looking for, but the other time that this will pop up is if you put the same supplier in twice. So if I put the same supplier name and you can see it they flag up in red and there's an issue. So I need to correct that. So you've got your suppliers. The other one is this one here, which is all prices inclusive or exclusive of VAT. It'll tell you down here what the default is. At the moment, it's showing exclusive. If I want all prices to be inclusive, I can change that by selecting over here. This doesn't do any calculations. All it does is it just shows on the rest of the spreadsheet, price exclusive, price inclusive, so you know which price to actually put in. It's not going to do any calculations. That's why I haven't asked you what the VAT rate is. It just labels it as such. The other one is if you want to insist on product codes. Now, this is the reason for this is that the spreadsheet, I'll show you in a minute, when you're cross-checking codes with prices, it needs a product code for every product. Now, you will be able to give one product code for a product across all different suppliers. So all suppliers should have the same product code. This is in the case where you, for example, if it's a TV or something and you can buy the TV from 5 different suppliers, if the TV itself has got a code that all 5 suppliers use, then you put that code in once and it duplicates across all suppliers. If in the case where what you might be doing is you may want to say, well, I don't know, whatever example, if you're talking about kind of hamburgers or whatever, you'd say you want to get a large burger. At McDonald's, it might be a double quarter pounder. At Wendy's, it might be the Baconator, whatever the case might be. So they may have different product codes or product IDs or terminology from the different suppliers, but you obviously want to put them all down as that one product because you could offer the client potentially slightly different products from different clients for different suppliers, but they all essentially achieve the same purpose. In which case, then you'd actually put each client's individual product code down. But this one here is, do you want to insist on product codes? And the answer is yes or no. Basically, what that means is when you're doing an order, if you say you don't want to insist on product codes, then what the spreadsheet will then do is let you put in the generic name and just give a price per supplier. So it won't actually give you a product code for each supplier. But the problem with that is when you come to ordering, it's going to give you the generic name and the price. It's not going to if you want to then use that as a purchase order to send to the client, they're not going to know what the supplier, sorry, they're not going to know what product to use. So if you want to insist on a product code for each product for each supplier, then say yes. If you're not using product codes like the old version, which didn't have product code, it just had a generic name of a product and then a price, then you can say no. So for example, if you want to get a purchase order, you can say yes. If this is for your home personal shopping list where you want to buy a 500 milliliter of milk from Tesco or Asda or wherever, then you can say no because you're not going to put an individual product code in for each one. This just removes the yellow alerts basically on the other sheet. I'll show you when we get there. So now you can set up the products and the product codes. So what you need to do here is type in all the different product names that you want to do. These are the generic product names. So this wouldn't be a B56314 from that supplier and a B56583 from that supplier. This is just large TV or whatever the generic term is that you're going to select later on. If you put the same product name in twice, it flags up again as a duplicate. You don't want to do that. So you can list this time up to 5,000 different products, and you can put in a new generic name, but a unique generic name, that's the word I was looking for, into here. And then you can decide if you want to use a product code or a generic product code or ID, or if you want to itemize. So as I've set this up previously, I put some data in here you can see already. I've said, well, in this case, this product is called a P1 at any supplier. Therefore, you put P1 in here and it won't ask you for these individual codes because it's just going to assign P1 to everyone. If you want to override it, you can. So if, for example, all suppliers are called a P1, but supplier 2 for some strange reason calls as a P15 or a P1A or whatever the case might be, you can override an individual supplier code with something different to the generic. But anyone who's blank here, if it needs a code, it'll use the generic code. If you don't fill this in, so if I didn't fill in P6, for example, it's going to ask me for one for each one P6 where I've got a price, which we'll get to next. So because instead of filling in all of those, you can either fill in all of them individually, or you can just say here, call them all P6, and it puts P6 throughout. If I were to go back to my intro and setup and say, no, I don't want to insist on yellow codes, then when you came back here, there's no yellow because it doesn't care. It's not, you can still fill them in, but it's not going to insist on you putting those codes in. So this is essentially, is it one code fits all supplier? Put it in here. If not, fill in the individual ones, leave this blank. And if any that are blank that you need, will take, if you fill them both in, so if, for example, if you fill this one in as a P6A, for example, then for this supplier, it will use the code P6A. For all other suppliers that it requires, it'll just use the code P6. So yes, this might be a little bit of a faff to fill in, but hopefully you're only going to fill in once. I'll show you later on, which is a new feature, how to update prices. But in the meantime, that is your product codes, and you can go right across to supplier number 20, and you can fill in all the different product codes for all the different products that you want to do. So this is going to be a bit of a faff to set up, but once you've set it up, hopefully you've just set it up once. You then go through the comparison prices. Now, I filled them in because I want to put some random numbers in here, but essentially what would happen is if you came here beforehand, you would actually have this situation. You wouldn't have all these values in, but you'd have the situation where it says new products, and then it asks for the generic product name. Now, if you've got 5 products, you can just go through each one and just select it. It'll tell you what they are in the drop-down list, and you just simply select it. If you've got a whole bunch of products like I've got here and you don't want to sit selecting one at a time, you can just come down the left-hand side and select all the cells that are green. The green ones are ones that are saying, hey, we've got a new product. You need to enter it into here. If you just copy that and go back to the top, make sure it's row 11, right-click here and paste values. Not normal paste. That'll paste all the formatting. You don't want to do that. You always want to use paste values in the spreadsheet. Paste values. What that then does is it then actually copies the products that you've got from the product codes into this price list. The reason it does that and doesn't do it automatically is because now you can actually, you can sort, you can reorder these two lists independently of each other. If these were coming through automatically, you'd have to put all the suppliers' prices in, and you couldn't reorder stuff, and you'd end up assigning the wrong price to the wrong product when things change. If you were to add a new product, say if you were to add a new product here, and you put in a code for all of them, when you then came to the comparison prices, it says there's one new. When you go to the bottom, it'll say there's one new one, and you can just simply select it. So you bring that one across as well, and then that clears. So that will help you to make sure that you've got all the right products on both lists and easy enough to bring them across, which means that it's not fully automated, but it's automated enough to help you. If any of these cells turn red, what that means is you've got a product here listed, which you don't actually have on the product codes, which means you either need to add in the product codes or you need to clear it out of the comparison price list. Then all that's left to do is to fill in all the prices. Now, these two tabs do talk back and forth to each other. So for example, product two, let's have a look and see where I've got one here. Product three, for example, let's have a look at the comparison prices. Supplier one doesn't have a product three. So if I came here and said, actually, supplier one, product three, the product code for that is supplier one, product three. When you come back to the comparison price, it's going to see here, hang on, you've put in a code, so you should have a price. In which case, it flags up yellow to go, what is the price for this that's missing? If you did it the other way around, and if there's no product code, and you actually came in here and said, this is actually £34.50, then when you come here, it's going to go, I need a product code because there's no generic code. You need to enter a product code. So they do work back and forth to make sure that you actually have all the required data. So if you add something on one and something pops up in yellow on the other or vice versa, then you know what's going on and you can adjust them. So that makes sure that these two lists match so that you've got a generic product name for everything. You've got a product code, either unique or generic for every single supplier that is listed for every single product when you have a price for them. And you have a price for all the matching product codes and a product code for all the matching prices. And if you've got no yellow on either of these two tabs, you'll be able to come to the, when you get to the comparison, actually product selection, there are actually hidden alerts behind here. So let's just go, for example, and put that in. Then it says you need a product code. When you actually get your product selection, it says missing data on the product codes tab. So when you get to the sheet, there are alerts behind the scenes, behind these two sections here that'll tell you what's going on. And that'll tell you which page to actually go and look at before you make your selection. But if you've got no yellow alerts coming up, that means that everything's correct. It matches on both. You've got all the information you need and you're good to go. Then you come to your product selection, and this is where it all comes together. So I'm going to clear this out and I'm going to redo it because once you've got those two set up, you can kind of leave those as you go along. Each time you want to do an order or a selection where you want to actually have a look at the products and see what are the cheaper options. This is essentially your shopping list, as it were. You can come down, you can select all the shopping list items. You want product 9, you want product 39, you want product 43, and you want product 84. How many of each do you want? 3 of those, 2 of those, 5 of those, 4 of those, and 1 of those. Now, the first section looks at all the different suppliers and pulls out the cheapest possible option. So the cheapest supplier for this product number 2, is supplier 14. There's the code product 2. Their unit price is £21, and that's the line price multiplied out. So this section here is your absolute cheapest option. Now, you may go through this and you might actually look and go, well, yeah, okay, I know supplier 15's product for that. I'm not in the mood for that. I don't particularly like it. I don't want to put that one here, or you've selling this into someone else and they've specifically asked for a specific brand or whatever the case might be. You can say, well, actually, for this particular product, I want to use supplier 4 instead. And then it replaces this. So this here is the cheapest one again, unless you've overridden the supplier, in which case it replaces that supplier and puts the price in. So this one said supplier 15 because it was 20. This one's supplier 4, which is actually £35 because it's more expensive. I've just used random figures here, so I don't read too much into that. This has a look to see if the price check is all valid, if it's got prices, because it is possible for you to select a supplier. Let's see if we can find one. I don't know which one it is now, so I'm going to have to just go through them and see when I can get one. Sometimes there's an option because there we go. Supplier 11 doesn't actually have this product. So you haven't put a price in, you haven't put a code in, there's no price. So supplier 11 doesn't actually have a product, which means this then flags up red and goes, you've got an issue here, you've got no product. Now you can proceed if you want to proceed. It will still do the comparison and the suppliers, but obviously in this order, you're missing one of these items. So that's not ideal. So if that flags up, you just want to make the call as to whether you actually want to have a complete list. And then all you need to do is just select a different supplier that's actually got that product. And then it goes, yep, all green, everything's good. You can now move on. Once you're happy with your selection, you can go to the comparison report. And this will give you a list. This is the cheapest option as per the previous tab. This is your selected option. These ones below here, if you get as many products as possible from each particular supplier. So what this does behind the scenes is it looks at each supplier and goes, can you get all the products from that supplier? Get as many from them as possible, and then get the other ones from either the one that you've said to overwrite, and if you haven't set to overwrite, then get it from the cheapest supplier. So it kind of makes up a shopping list. What if you were to only go to supplier 15 or 12, supplier 14, etc.? And then all the rest of the products that are missing, it makes them up based on your selection or based on the cheapest one. And then it gives you a breakdown. So here we can see these are all, well, these ones up here and these ones down here. That's a total cost if you take the cheapest option, the selected option, supplier 15 mainly, supplier 12 mainly, etc. How many suppliers are involved if you take that order? In this case, you've got 4 suppliers to buy from. In this case, you've got 5 suppliers to buy from. In this case, 2. In this case, 2. In this case, 1. In this case, 1, etc. So you may look down and go, well, actually, this is the 5th highest price, but I only have to get them from one supplier. It's £411 as compared to 307. For the convenience of just ordering from one place, I may as well just do that instead of actually buying from 4 places to get the savings. So you can make that decision. It tells you how many suppliers you'll use taking that option. It'll tell you how many products. These should always be the full number of products. That's how many products you've actually ordered, but these are how many products are supplied. So the only time you'll have fewer here is if you've made a selection here which doesn't have a product, then you're going to see that not all products are going to be supplied. And this tells you how many of those products you're getting from that one supplier. So that one doesn't apply up here. So for example, here, 100% of the products coming from one supplier. That's why it only says one supplier. And this last column gives you the overall rank. So I'm going to guess 99 times out of 100, if not every single time, the cheapest option is going to be ranked number 1. These ones here might be ranked above your selected option because you may have selected an option where it's cheaper to actually buy that particular product from another supplier. So therefore, it comes out cheaper. So it's not unusual that this wouldn't necessarily be the next cheapest option. You may have some of these from suppliers being the next cheapest option. The only downside to this is that where you've selected, for example, that you want that supplier, these ones over here aren't necessarily going to use that supplier because they're going to prioritize the supplier that you want to get it from. They'll only use the supplier here that you've overridden if you can't get it from that supplier. So even though these are cheaper, if you are absolutely adamant that you want to get it from the suppliers that you've selected here, my advice then would just be to select the selected option regardless. Just clear that one out because then so this is how it'll look when you first come across everything in white. It'll give you all the options, and then you can decide which one do you actually want to go with. If I decide the cheapest option, it greens out the cheapest option. If I decide selected option, and as you can see, it gives it in price list, a price order. So if I say, well, actually forget it, let's just get everything from supplier 14, one simple order, there it is. That's the way we're going for. Now, once you've done that and you've made a selection at the top here, you can then go to your supplier orders. Now, supplier 20 doesn't have any. And all you do then is it'll give you a list of the suppliers that it's found you require. So in this case, it only requires supplier 14. If you were to go back here and say that you actually wanted to go for the cheapest option, when you come to your supplier list, it'll give you the 4 different supplier options that you can buy on the cheaper option. And as you select each one, it pulls up the product code, the quantity, unit price, and the line price for each different supplier. So you can then say this is a PDF or get a printout of this or print it out or copy the data and paste it into your own spreadsheet to make as an order form or however you want to do it to then be able to go and order these different items. Whereas alternatively, if this is a shopping list, you can just print it out or write it out or whatever it out and take that off into Tesco with you to go and buy your groceries. So that's it. The last page that I want to show you is this price replacer. This looks a little bit complicated, but this is one of the bits of feedback I got, and this is what I kind of anticipated at the beginning, but it was a bit of a fact to do. But I've managed to do it now. Is the if a price list actually changes. If a price list actually changes, you'll have you've got all your prices in here, and now all of a sudden all of supply two prices change. Now you're going to go through each of these ones and change each one manually. What you can do is you can come to the price replacer and you can select supply two. This here will all be blank. I'll put this in, so ignore that. It'll tell you the generic product name. It'll tell you the product code. These are the product codes. It'll give you the generic product name and the comparison prices because these two lists may not line up yet. And then it's going to ask you for your data. If you copy and paste values, the product code from your suppliers, if they send you a spreadsheet with all the product code in one column and the prices next to it, make sure the prices are the right ones that you've got here, whether they be inclusive or exclusive of VAT. Paste values into the section, copy, paste values, your product code, and your new price. Once you've got that in, what it'll do then is it'll give you all the new product codes. The new product codes you don't necessarily have to change because they'll be the same as before because they're using them to look up. The reason you might want to do this is because I have taken the product code to actually clear out all the spaces in case you've got, because some people do sub 2, 3 space, 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 and that really messes with the formulas. So I have done it to clear it. So you can do that if you want to. I'll show you what I mean by do that. You can use that, but you need to use this new price list column because what the new price list does is it looks down here and says, can I find a new price for each of these product codes? Yes, and it puts a new price in. Can I find a new price? No, there's no new price listed for that code. Okay, put the old price back in again. And then all you do is you select this. So if I come to the top, shift, control, and down, it jumps right down to the bottom. I copy. And I know I'm doing supplier two, and I come to the comparison prices, supplier two, right click and paste values. Not normal paste, paste values. And if I do that paste values over this, what that does is it pastes all the new prices down for the respective generic name for each of those products down in the supplier to supplier list, because that's the one I've now changed. And then you can come here once you're done and you can clear that out and you can deselect supplier two and it all clears out. And you can do that the next time for supplier 3, 4, 5, etc. So that means you don't have to go and retype everything. You can just do a lookup and do it. Just keep in mind that if it can't find a new price because the codes differ, it won't put a new price in. It'll just keep the old price. And it also doesn't add new products on as well. If you did do the product code, you could also do that shift control down, copy the product code and go to the product code and right click paste values over those product codes as well if you want to do that just to clean them out. But as I said, that's not that important. It's just if you start getting spaces at the end of things. But the price is the new price, at least you can do. So you can do that periodically as you get new prices just to update. So hopefully that all makes sense. If you set it up in that order, you do it in that order, and you watch out for all the alerts and you copy what I've just done there, you shouldn't have any problems. And yeah, I wish you all the best with this. Thank you very much and goodbye.